A few months ago, I received a phone call that changed everything. It was my bank, asking to confirm a loan application for $150,000. I hadn't applied for any loan, so you can imagine my confusion. My first thought was that this must be some kind of mistake, an error in their records. But as the conversation continued, the sinking realization hit me. Someone had taken out the loan in my name. My parents. My own parents had forged my signature to co-sign a massive loan to fund the extravagant wedding of my younger sister, Ashley. To say I was furious would be an understatement. Ashley and I had never been close. Growing up, she was the golden child, spoiled by our parents to no end. While I worked hard to build a stable life, Ashley always got what she wanted handed to her on a silver platter. Yet, even with all the resentment that had simmered between us, this crossed a line I never thought they would dare approach. I confronted my parents immediately, expecting some kind of denial or at least a half-hearted excuse. Instead, they didn't even flinch. They admitted to everything, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. My father even had the audacity to say, as Ashley's older brother, "It's your responsibility to help her." Responsibility? Since when does family mean committing fraud and jeopardizing someone's future? Their reasoning made me sick. They argued that they couldn't bear to tell Ashley no, and that the wedding of her dreams was more important than respecting my autonomy, or the law, for that matter. I walked out of that confrontation with my blood boiling. I couldn't let this slide. Not this time. The next step was clear. I needed to see the loan agreement for myself. I contacted the bank, who provided me with a copy. My stomach churned as I read through the terms. The loan was structured to be paid off in 2 years, a stipulation my parents clearly had no intention of fulfilling. If they defaulted, the entire burden would fall squarely on my shoulders. To make matters worse, they knew about my plans to leave my job and start my own business. I had poured months of work and significant savings into preparing for this venture. Their betrayal wasn't just about the money, it was about the complete disregard for my future. Fueled by anger and determination, I decided to expose them. If they were willing to drag me into this mess, I wasn't going to suffer in silence. I logged onto Facebook and found Ashley's fiancé, Brandon. I typed out a message that laid everything bare: the forged loan, the lies, the utter disrespect. I warned him to reconsider marrying into a family capable of such deceit. Then, on a wave of righteous fury, I sent similar messages to Ashley's friends, relatives, and even her future in-laws. The fallout was immediate and brutal. My parents called incessantly, begging me to take back what I had said. They accused me of destroying Ashley's life and ruining the family. My mother's voice cracked as she screamed over the phone, blaming me for everything that was unraveling. Ashley wasn't far behind. She called, seething with anger, demanding to know why I had involved her fiancé. "You've ruined my wedding. You've ruined my life," she yelled. Her words stung, but I didn't regret my actions. At least, not at first. Ashley insisted she knew nothing about the loan, claiming she was just as much a victim as I was. For a moment, I doubted myself. Could she really have been in the dark? But as days passed, her story began to unravel. During a heated phone call, she finally admitted that she had known all along. She had been aware of the scheme but thought it wouldn't matter as long as everything stayed under the radar. Her admission felt like a punch to the gut. For weeks, I had grappled with guilt, questioning whether I had gone too far. But now, all I felt was rage. Ashley wasn't sorry for what she had done. She was only sorry that her plan had failed. I told her as much, refusing to apologize for exposing the truth. "You've spent your whole life getting whatever you want," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "This time, you crossed the line." Determined to hold my parents accountable, I contacted a lawyer and began preparing for legal action. The bank, thankfully, was on my side. They assured me that I wouldn't be responsible for the loan payments, but the fraud had already been reported. My parents were in serious legal trouble. The backlash from the rest of the family was relentless. Relatives flooded my phone with calls and messages, urging me to drop the case. "Families should stick together," they said. "Why are you tearing us apart?" But their pleas fell on deaf ears. I wasn't the one who had committed fraud. I wasn't the one who had betrayed trust. Still, the emotional toll was heavy. I found solace in the support of my cousin Emily, one of the few family members who didn't try to guilt-trip me. Over coffee, she asked me a question that stuck with me. "What do you want out of this?" Are you looking for justice or closure? At the time, I wasn't sure. I just wanted them to understand that they couldn't treat me this way anymore. Weeks later, my parents' attorney reached out, offering a settlement. They were desperate to avoid a court battle and willing to pay a significant sum to make the lawsuit disappear. The offer was tempting. It would give me the financial stability I needed to focus on my business, but accepting it felt like letting them off the hook. In the end, I chose to settle. The money was enough to cover my startup costs, and the legal ordeal was finally over. But the settlement marked the end of my relationship with my family. We were no longer bound by anything but blood. Ashley called me one last time after the settlement. Her tone was softer than before, almost defeated. She told me that Brandon had ended their engagement and that our parents were selling their house to cover their debts. For the first time, she sounded genuinely lost. "I don't know what to do," she said quietly. I didn't have an answer for her. "You need to figure that out for yourself," I replied. In the months that followed, I poured myself into my business. It became my anchor, giving me a sense of purpose and control. But the scars from my family's betrayal lingered. Losing them, even under such circumstances, left a void I couldn't ignore. Emily's words came back to me often. Sometimes family isn't just about blood. Slowly, I began to build a new support system, friends, colleagues, and people who truly cared about me. For the first time in a long time, I felt freed. Looking back, I don't regret standing up for myself. My parents' actions forced me to confront the toxic dynamics that had defined our family for years. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I've learned that sometimes breaking away from the people who hurt you is the only way to find peace. And while the road ahead is uncertain, I know one thing for sure. I'm done being the scapegoat for their mistakes. After the settlement, life began to settle into a new rhythm. With the lawsuit behind me, I finally had the breathing room to focus on my business. Starting a company had always been my dream, but it felt different now. This wasn't just about building a career. It was about reclaiming my independence and proving to myself that I could thrive without my family's support. I rented a modest office, hired a small but talented team, and threw myself into the work. Late nights became my new normal, but for the first time in months, the exhaustion felt satisfying. Each milestone we hit, our first project, our first client, felt like a step towards something bigger. I was finally building something entirely my own. But even as I moved forward, the past had a way of lingering. The family drama didn't stop with the settlement. My parents were drowning in debt, their carefully constructed image of financial stability in shambles. They sold the family home to cover some of the damages, and from what I heard through Emily, they were struggling to adjust to their new reality. My mother, who had always prided herself on hosting grand family gatherings, was now living in a small apartment with my father, far from the lavish lifestyle they had tried to maintain. Ashley, meanwhile, was floundering. After Brandon broke off their engagement, she moved in with a friend. Our parents' financial troubles meant she couldn't rely on them for support, and for the first time, she seemed to be experiencing the consequences of her actions. It wasn't easy to hear about their struggles. A part of me wanted to feel vindicated, to see their downfall as justice served. But another part of me couldn't shake the guilt. After all, they were still my family. It was Emily who helped me see things more clearly during one of our conversations. "They made their choices," she said firmly. "You didn't force them to forge your name or lie to the bank. They're dealing with the consequences of their own decisions." Her words helped, but the ache of losing my family was still there. One evening, as I was leaving the office, my phone buzzed with a call from an unfamiliar number. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but something made me pick up. "Hey." Ashley's voice was hesitant, almost fragile. I need to talk to you." It had been weeks since we last spoke, and I wasn't sure what to expect. Her tone wasn't angry this time. If anything, she sounded defeated. "Mom and Dad are in trouble," she said after a long pause. "They're drowning in debt, and I don't know what to do." Her words hit me harder than I expected. Despite everything, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. But I wasn't sure what she wanted from me. "I'm sorry you're dealing with this," I said carefully, keeping my tone neutral. "But their decisions led to this. I can't fix it for them." "I know," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know where to go from here." For the first time, Ashley sounded vulnerable, not the spoiled, entitled sister I had grown up resenting, but someone genuinely lost. I hesitated, unsure how to respond. "You need to figure that out for yourself," I finally said. "It's what I've had to do." The silence that followed was heavy, but it felt like a turning point. When the call ended, I realized that while I still cared about Ashley, I couldn't carry her burdens anymore. Over the next few weeks, I focused on my business, pouring my energy into something I could control. It wasn't just a distraction, it was my way of rebuilding. Slowly, the weight of my family's betrayal began to lift. One day, Emily sent me a text. Asterisk, proud of you for staying strong. Let's catch up soon. Asterisk, her support had been a lifeline through all of this, and I was grateful to have her in my corner. When we met for coffee, she asked about the business and how I was holding up. I told her about the progress we'd made and the challenges that still lay ahead. For the first time, I felt a sense of hope. "You're doing amazing," she said with a smile. "And remember, family isn't just about blood. You can build your own." Her words stayed with me. Over the coming months, I started to surround myself with people who truly cared about me, friends, colleagues, even mentors who believed in my vision. It wasn't the same as having a family, but it felt like a start. Months later, just as I thought I had left the past behind, Ashley showed up at my office unannounced. She looked different, tired, but not as combative as I remembered. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice cautious. I invited her in, unsure what to expect. She sat across from me, fidgeting with her hands. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," she began. "About what I did, what Mom and Dad did, and how it's all fallen apart." Her honesty caught me off guard. For once, she wasn't blaming me or making excuses. Instead, she admitted to her mistakes and even apologized for her role in the mess. "I know I've been selfish," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "And I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm trying to change." It was the first time Ashley had ever shown real accountability, and it left me speechless. Part of me wanted to let her in, to believe that she was sincere. But another part of me was still guarded. "I appreciate you saying that," I said carefully. "But trust takes time to rebuild." She nodded, seeming to understand. When she left, I felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, hope, and a lingering sense of caution. As the years passed, I continued to build my business and my new life. My relationship with Ashley improved slowly, but I kept firm boundaries. My parents, on the other hand, remained distant. We were civil when necessary, but the bond we once shared was irreparably broken. Looking back, I realized that standing up for myself had been the hardest but most necessary thing I'd ever done. It taught me the importance of valuing my own worth and not letting others take advantage of me, even if they were family. Today, I'm in a place of peace. The scars from that chapter of my life are still there, but they no longer define me. I've learned that family isn't about blood. It's about love, respect, and mutual support. And for the first time, I feel free.